Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful story that turns a moment of personal crisis into a strategic framework for your career. We'll look at how to stop being the overlooked pawn and start being the influential queen on the board.
Now this quote, this is the key to everything we're about to talk about. It's a pretty simple idea, right? When your own personal motivation is just completely tapped out, find a reason to keep going for other people. This little shift is the catalyst that can turn a personal low point into a huge professional breakthrough.
And here's the connection we're going to dig into. That feeling of despair, of being totally lost in the crowd. Well, that's the exact same feeling as being professionally invisible. It just goes to show that even the most talented, competent people can feel completely powerless if nobody sees the value they're bringing.
Okay, let's get to the heart of the problem. It all starts with a belief that so many of us have, and honestly, it can be pretty dangerous. It's the idea that if you just put your head down and do great work, you'll eventually get recognized. But as we know, that's not always how the game is played.
Just picture this scene for a second. It really captures the raw starting point of this whole story. The author feels totally overwhelmed, isolated in this new competitive world, completely out of her depth. It's a feeling a lot of us can relate to, right? That classic imposter syndrome that can hit you like a ton of bricks when you're the new person, trying to fit into a strong company culture. But this moment of crisis, it didn't end in defeat. It actually led to this really raw, emotional confrontation with her family. And surprisingly, that moment of breaking down turned out to be the breakthrough that changed absolutely everything. These words from her sister weren't just comforting. They were a complete rewiring of the entire problem. Instead of being stuck inside her own head, worrying about her own abilities, the focus suddenly shifted to an external mission. Do it for others. This is the turning point.
And this is where that personal story really transforms into a professional strategy. That internal light bulb moment maps directly onto a leadership model that honestly we can all learn from.
So, at the beginning, the author was operating as a pawn. Super hardworking, technically great, but actively avoiding the spotlight. This is the classic trap of quiet competence. You're doing amazing work, but nobody knows about it. And the biggest risk here isn't that you'll fail, it's that you'll just be completely overlooked. So that family confrontation, that triggered what this framework calls the awakening stage. This is that critical aha moment where you finally realize that just putting in the effort and actually having influence are two totally different things. You have to shift from just doing the work to making that work visible.
Okay, so let's pull out the first big leadership insight from this turning point. And this is a real game changer for anyone who's feeling stuck or maybe a little burned out.
For the author, her motivation was totally reignited when she thought about her family's sacrifices. And this reveals something so important. Connecting your work to a purpose that's bigger than just yourself is an incredibly powerful antidote to burnout. It's the difference between being humble and being invisible. Humility is a great value, for sure, but in the corporate world, invisibility is a liability.
And this kind of forces us to ask a really important question about our own careers, especially on those days when we're just feeling drained. When you're running on empty, how can you hook your work into something bigger, your team, your stakeholders, to get that spark back?
So here's the play. This is the corrective move. You shift your focus from your own to-do list to the problems that other people are facing. So instead of just checking off tasks, you start talking about how your work helps them win. Suddenly, you're not just working anymore. You're providing visible, undeniable value. All right, let's get to the second key insight here. This one happened after the author found a new peer group, and her world just started to open up in a big way. Now, this might sound like such a small detail, but its impact was massive. It wasn't really about the cereal, of course. It was about being exposed to a totally different reality. That one little moment expanded her whole idea of what was possible, and it reshaped her ambition and her belief in herself. And this story, it kind of forces us to ask ourselves a pretty tough question about our own careers. Are we stuck in a professional echo chamber? Are we only seeing our tiny little corner of the chessboard, completely blind to the bigger game that's being played all around us? So the corrective move here is to deliberately break out of your box. Go seek out new projects, find mentors in different departments, join new things. This isn't just about learning new skills. It's about seeing your own value from a completely different angle. It's how a pawn starts to see the whole board. So how do we take these really personal lessons and actually translate them into the modern, often messy corporate world? How do we apply this stuff to our own careers right now? This chart really just boils it all down. On the left, you've got the passive pawn mistake, just working harder by yourself or just kind of waiting to be noticed. And on the right, you've got the strategic move, connecting your work to a bigger goal and actively looking for exposure. It's the difference between letting the game happen to you and actively making your own move.
And the ultimate takeaway is this. Being good at your job gets you on the board, but it doesn't win the game. In corporate life, your strategic positioning is what determines your progression. You have to be the one who decides where you are on that board and where you're going next.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to take with you. This isn't about some grand 5-year plan. It's about the very next move.
And that's the final piece of the puzzle. Your career isn't some static thing. It's a dynamic game board. Your competence earned you a spot, but only strategic movement is going to change your position from pawn to queen. So make your move. Thank you for joining us.